Hello and welcome to BlitzBe Today. My name is Monica Krimendahl and I'm here with my business partner, Rick Hayhurst. Hey, Rick.
Hey, hi friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
And we are so excited to have the Melissa Lamson here today. She is an executive coach. She has written 6 books. She is a speaker and she's worked on many, many projects in 40 different countries. She has built and run companies in Europe and the United States. For over 20 years, she developed leadership strategies, has designed and taught leadership programs, and was most highly attended program. And she created the most highly attended program at SAP for 10 years. And so she has taught leadership programs for 3M, IKEA, LinkedIn, MTV, and SpaceX. And she's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Chicago Tribune, Forbes, and she's a former columnist for Inc. magazine. And now she sits on the board for Girls in Tech and the ASU Art Museum. We are so happy to have you here, Melissa. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so bring us into your world a little bit. Obviously, today is this moment, and bring us backward a little bit in time and just tell us a little bit about how you got to some of the success that you have and where you started.
Yeah, well, it's all by accident. But, well, I would say part of it is I have insatiable curiosity and I'm always interested in learning more about everything. And so how I ended up getting to Europe, which gave me the opportunity to work on all these projects in all these different countries, was actually I was approached at a barbecue by just a German guy who had graduated from Harvard. And he said, look, I wanted to go on a Harley Davidson across country from Boston to Seattle. Are you interested in joining me? And I said, well, I'm not opposed to it, but it'd be probably good for me to learn what your name is first. So we we exchanged names. We chatted a bit, and I have to admit, I did find him a bit charming and interesting. So we basically, after a couple of days, decided we would do the trip, and we bought a motorcycle, planned the trip, went across country for about 6 weeks in the summer, the northern route. And then at the end of the trip, he was like, you know, what you do is really interesting. I just finished a master's in intercultural relations and I had specialized in diversity management. I was working for a pretty prestigious diversity consultancy at that point. And then he said, you know, no one's really doing that in Germany or in Europe that I've heard of. And I think it'd be cool if you wanted to come over and check it out. And so I basically made the decision to do that. I'd grown up with a fairly, I would say, international mindset. My father was a Spanish professor, and I spent time in Spain and Mexico. And so my head was already kind of open to the idea of working in the world and being part of an international community. And then, of course, I rebelled and I took French in college and went to France. But okay, it's another story. Anyway, so I moved to Germany and I was there for 10 years. Didn't intend to be there for 10 years, but it worked out that way, and just have a fabulous community of people there, and had the opportunity to build 2 businesses. And I basically moved back for another guy. So my current husband, although that always sounds bad, like there's going to be a future husband, but you know, I guess you never know in life, right? My current husband was based in San Francisco. And so I moved there to be with him, and I was still working globally. So it didn't really matter where I lived. And that's where we were. So leadership, diversity, and then up to, if you want me to, I can already start talking about what we're working on now as the current project, but
yeah, go for it.
Okay. So the past has been leadership and diversity. It was actually interesting coming back to the States, because in Europe, they actually do diversity work, and the corporations care about practicing diversity because it's the right business thing to do. It's also the right ethical thing to do. They don't necessarily give it lip service. And if they don't believe in it, they'll just sort of tell you directly, we don't believe in it, we're not going to do it. Well, it was interesting to come back to the States and kind of be reminded of how the diversity world works, where it's a lot of, well, we should do this, and it's compliance, and there's all of that kind of tied to it, which was fascinating. And I kind of repositioned myself more as a global leadership expert instead of a diversity expert. And then it was funny because no one cared about the global piece either. So I just moved to the leadership part pure, and built leadership programs for most of the major Silicon Valley companies that you've heard of or know of. And then we moved to Phoenix because my stepson started at ASU and we're weird helicopter parents and decided to follow him. And we also liked the airport because it was a good airport to fly in and out of. We were just talking about that before we started here, because it's a very easy airport. My husband had 100% travel and I was probably 80% travel to work with clients. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit, boom, and both of us were completely grounded, and as many were. And it was like, what do we do now? I mean, all of a sudden I had maybe 30%, maybe even 40% of my time back. Because, you know, for those of you who travel and spend a lot of time on the road, you know that hotels and airports and and airplanes and all of that there's a lot of time that's sort of wasted. I mean, obviously you can work on airplanes and in hotels and in airports, but it's not always the easiest thing to do, the most comfortable thing to do, particularly if you're on a rigorous project with clients. So I had all this time, and I was a bit tired of the pandemic. So I called a friend and said, hey, let's go to Sedona for a few days and just get out of everything, the city, and get away and do some nice hiking and pretend that the pandemic's not going on. And as we got there, both of us being entrepreneurial in nature, in our mindset, we said, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? Well, I don't know. I have all this time. Like, I don't know what to do with myself. Well, let's spin something up. And so we started talking about being women over 50 and what does that look like? And what are the resources out there? What excites us about life and business? And on the macro level, well, I'm not really being a very good interviewee, am I? Because I'm not letting you ask me questions. So, So on the macro level, this is more like a monologue, so hopefully all of your listeners will appreciate this. So on the macro level, we started thinking about what do communities and cities and society, what is sort of needed? Well, we need gender balance. We need to give more opportunity to more people. We need to give access to resources to those who may not have access or easy access. And so we thought, well, women over 50, which is obviously a population that we know well, they aren't really served by the startup community, the accelerator incubator community. You don't really hear about like these, sexy startup weeks for like 50-year-old, 50, 60, 70-year-old, particularly women. And so we thought, well, let's create that sexy accelerator, serve it up on a silver platter, and get all that knowledge and experience and just interest and also impatience that women over 50 have and really harness it and get them thinking about how they build business, how to build businesses and how to build businesses at a bigger scale, right? How do they get investment for those businesses? How do they really take those businesses national or even international? So that they really develop wealth and also a sense of purpose and meaning and leave a legacy, right, going forward. And so we put that all together in a program and an accelerator, and we launched it in June, this past June. We kept postponing it a bit because we felt strongly that it should be something that we did at least partially live. And so we launched it in June, and we're in the middle of it now. So it's called the Recreate Action Tank. The company's called Recreate now, and we have 10 women over 50 building businesses with us.
So amazing. I just love it. I love, the whole snowball progression of the whole thing of how, you were working so hard and you were traveling all over the place. And then there was this pandemic, and then you chose to sit down with a friend and create this amazing thing out of the pandemic. Yeah. And we've heard so many stories. It's just so awesome to hear that. And I love that you chose women, because I just happen to be, in your category. And so
yeah,
so it's fun. It's fun to hear that and the way that you're creating it. And it's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing and for bringing this to the world right now at a time when we just need it. And it's time for it, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Rick? I saw you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, she's a spring chicken. Don't let her fool you.
Yeah, certainly looks like one. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
No. So I do have some questions. So it sounds to me like there's this, there's all these different parts, obviously, to each of us. We didn't just, jump out of our mothers yesterday. So we've got a whole story. And I'd love to hear more about how you're framing this new Recreate for Women. How do you find these women? Then what is it that you're doing for them?
Yes.
Or they're doing in it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's a great question because we really just got very crystal clear about who specifically we're serving. So the women kind of fall in three categories. They're empty nesters who maybe weren't working, didn't necessarily need to work, but obviously were working in their personal lives by raising a family and project managing their household and all of that. And they're kind of like at this point where, all right, I'm not as needed by others. I don't have as much to manage in terms of my project at home and family. So what's next for me? So that's one category. The other category are women who are entrepreneurs, kind of like we were, and either something happened because of the pandemic, or they're just at a place where they're either not that excited about their businesses, or their business has changed or it's lagging, and they really want to either spin something else up or really want to think about how do they scale what they have currently and kind of take it on a new direction. So those entrepreneurs. And then the corporate women, which is so interesting. First of all, it's exciting because there are a lot of companies now that are seeing the value of kind of allowing, for lack of a better word, their employees to spin up companies in addition to their full-time corporate job. And they actually encourage that and think that's a good thing, which it is, because if people are satisfied and excited in their personal lives, they're going to be, excited in their professional jobs. And so that's also an area that's really interesting for us. So women who are in corporate, who, and as you know, like the more experience you have and the more you've worked in the corporate world, you may not have to put as much of the time that you did when you were in your 30s or 40s in the corporate world, because you've got it, right? You understand how things work. You can do things efficiently. You're better at delegating. And so there is a little bit of space and time to be able to spin up something else. So that's another category. So corporate women also doing a business, not necessarily on the side, but in parallel to their job. And potentially that becomes their exit strategy in the future too.
Yeah.
So we have those three categories of who we're serving. And then the Action Tank itself consists of a 6-month program, and they have 3 live events, and the 3 live events are like really rigorous workshop days, if you will, around visioning, building your business model canvas, figuring out who your ideal customer is. And then they go off and do have like lots of homework to do, right, to get that all sort of in place. So it's really interesting. I see it as like a puzzle, and they get a bunch of puzzle pieces day 1, and then they go in and they go click, 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 right? And then day 2, we do all sales, sales funnel, sales flow, sales strategy, and funding. What are your funding options, sources? What are investors looking for? Are you going to go for capital? Are you going to continue to sort of self-fund? And then and then they go off and they sort of click, 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 click all those puzzle pieces in. And then day 3 is all about marketing strategy, and then go to market. And then they get the opportunity to pitch in front of a really cool, we used to call it our dolphin tank, but unfortunately someone else has already trademarked it, so we can't anymore. But it's a group of women, investors, partners, entrepreneurs who have been incredibly successful, and they have the opportunity to pitch their businesses in front of them. And then they get to win capital from us, because we've set aside a bit of a fund. We call it the Recreate Fund, for one winner. And then they also get the opportunity to just potentially build the networks and connections they need to take their business also on to the next level, or to get some investment money for it. So that's really kind of the icing on the cake, if you will. So again, it's just finishing the puzzle on day 3. And then they really have a solid business plan, solid strategy. Most of them we're halfway through right now. And we're so excited because they already have clients. So they're already making money, which is exciting. And then, but their official launch will be sort of after the pitch, if you will.
It's so powerful. The program is there's so much breadth to the program. And as you're speaking through it, I just see success everywhere. And
Thank you.
My curiosity is, how did you research, or what research was required as you're putting the elements of the course together?
Yeah. Yes. luckily we had a lot of our own experience and learnings and failures that we could learn from, but also successes. And then we just went out in the community, and I talked to as many entrepreneurs, startups, accelerators, incubators, both locally and nationally, on what they're doing and how are they doing it and what do they need and what do their constituents need. And just kind of put that all together. And then we know just instinctively, I mean, what do women over 50 who have some, have some means and some resources, we like really fancy, nice spas. We like fun. We like everything kind of served up to us on a silver platter. And so we said, we really want this to be kind of a luxury experience, right? We're going to serve all of this to you so that you can just, pick it all out and easily digest it, and then be able to reproduce it and launch a business. And so, so with that said, the program is really designed kind of similarly to other accelerators and incubators, but then we add this layer of just really having it all served up on a silver platter so that they don't have to go run around and find their own resources. We provide a list of resources for them. We provide a list of vetted vendors for them, because, vendor selection can be just horrific, right? And then we also just make sure that we just keep throwing as many resources to them as possible so they don't have to go out and Google anything, really. So that's on the whole business side. But then there's the other piece of it, which is the accountability in the community, which women in general love to have, but also, I mean, and this is sort of my secret underlying piece. I mean, my business partner agrees with me on this, but I think she also just sort of goes, yes, Melissa, yes, we're going to abolish the patriarchy because of our, right? So my whole thing is that I want to create the old girls network, although that's a terrible phrase, and we're trying to look for a new one, that kind of balances that out to the old boys network and also the new bro network. I mean, just in Phoenix alone, it's 2 white men under 40 who just raised the most capital for their businesses, right? And again, it's the same target group. And so I want it to be, oh, wow, 5 women over 50 just raised the capital, more capital than anybody else in Phoenix, hopefully by next year. That's a little ambitious, but maybe in 2 years. And so it's that gender balance is really important to me in our societies, our communities, and also our businesses. Anyway, that's a little bit of a side note. The other piece is the accountability. So they meet in what we call creation pods in between the live events, so that they're in smaller groups, really serving up their expertise to each other. So one woman has, 30 years of finance experience. Another woman has like 30 years of marketing experience. So they can leverage that for each other. And then also just really hold each other's feet to the fire to say, did you do what you needed to do? Are you getting your homework done? And so that you're ready for the next play. And then on top of that, we also provide what we call surprise and delight. And honestly, I give this all to my business partner, Kimberly Miles, who is just like so creative and such an incredible thinker. And she's funny because we laugh about this because neither one of us feel like we're particularly fun people, but we've really managed to come up with some super fun ideas. And so every day long workshop, we also have some surprise things. So we did like a sing along in this to a bunch of movie clips that were pulled out of famous musicals. It was fabulous. And then we had like a cocktail making class, and we had a flash mob, and we have a bunch of things coming up that I can't talk about because if they're listening, they'll find out. But all these really like fun areas were museum trips or special musical events and special food and just things that that can kind of stimulate that creativity and break down any barriers to building relationships, as well as to even just thinking outside the box around your business.
Really cool and super exciting, and being on the other gender and totally in support of what you're saying.
Are you jelly?
I think it's so powerful to really consider women becoming or being who they are, like just who they are. It's nothing magical. It's just like being who they are. And then, having the resources and the support to fulfill on that, and becoming is a big deal, and moving all the obstacles out of the way. And then you mentioned the fun stuff, which I think you're fun, by the way. You mentioned the fun stuff, and I started to think, is the course local? I mean, I know you mentioned getting together for the workshops, and that's obviously in person in one locale. So are the fun events all over the place too, or they're specific to when you all get together for the workshop?
Yeah, that's a great question. Kind of both. So right now we're just sort of backing them up against the actual workshop day. So we do have women, we didn't anticipate this actually, but we do have women flying in for the Recreate Action Tank from a couple different places. And so about half our group right now actually lives elsewhere, but they're, fine with flying in. It's only three trips. And we have such a great airport. And so I know this is a private joke. It's a private joke. And so so we have them locally, either like in the evening or in the middle of the day, even, or even in the mornings here. But we also have partnered with a woman named Wendy Deacon, who runs Inspiration U. And she runs like fly fishing trips, like in Utah, or like some great hiking trip in Colorado. And she's given all of our members free memberships to her group, and then they get access to all of these interesting trips and things. And so our vision and dream is to eventually, continuing to offer more, like the alumni to be able to go off on trips together and be able to do these wonderful experiences together, where they're also continuing to bond and maybe also share resources, right? Do some business deals with each other. So sort of like the golf course scenario, but we take that to whatever kinds of creative, adventurous trips that are happening. So that's kind of like our future plan. And maybe even like, we'd love to do a big trip to Europe once we've run like 6 of these, right? With everybody, because that would be so exciting. But the long-term plan is, I might have already mentioned this, so forgive me if I did, but we're doing this in Phoenix now, and we're starting one in January 2022. But the idea is that we're going to run them in every capital of every state within the US. And then we've also been talking to a group in Buenos Aires, also in Paris and in Berlin. And they're all interested in possibly bringing the Recreate Action Tank there too.
So good. Wow.
I know.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing,
Yes.
amazing, amazing. How does so a lot of focus on the traditional world instead of virtual world, like the traditional world, having things on I was going to say on vacation. I meant to say on site. But vacation is good,
Yeah.
So how does it work for you? How does Zoom and these virtual meetings work in your course?
Yeah. So in between, the creation pods meet over Zoom. So they do that virtually. And we're offering sort of like mini courses. So we did one on IP protection for, a 90-minute course over Zoom. The funding sources one is over Zoom for 90 minutes. Then we also have our pitch deck coach who's going to work with them over Zoom for pitch deck preparation. And then we also work with the women. We do as coaching for them as much as is needed, or just like they call it the kick in the bum sort of meetings, just to kind of keep them on track. So we kind of, all that stuff happens in between virtually. Of course, if it continues the way it is and it gets to the point where we need to move everything virtually, we hope it's going to go the other way. But if it does go that way, we are set up to do that. I mean, we're also simultaneously building our technology infrastructure on the back end as much as possible, because again, if there's a better opportunity to do this virtually, or because we'll grab more people, then we want to be able to offer that. But we just, that we're really trying to recreate the whole dynamic of how men have been successful. They behind closed doors and in the clubs and on the golf course, they've really built strong relationships, and they exchange favors, and that's how they've gained the wealth and the visibility and the prestige that they have. And I'm not knocking that. That's a great strategy. It's good. And I just want us to be able to do the same thing. And I think live is important for that in terms of building trust. And particularly, to be honest, with our age group, because we know what it's like not to work with any devices at all, and build those relationships. So for now, we're going to keep it that way, but we'll see, a hybrid, I should say.
Yeah. Are you saying there was time before Zoom?
Yeah. Yeah, right. I know.
Right. I just love it. I love the whole thing because yes, I love it. I want to help women grow. I want to raise that tide for all ships so that we have the same opportunities. And you're right. There is something about being in person that is different than being on Zoom, and that connection is just different. And I do hope also that things open up so we can keep moving. And I love your vision. I love where you're taking this, and I love Buenos Aires. I haven't ever been there, so I'll go there.
Yeah. Oh, I have a
beautiful.
cool story about Buenos Aires, if you'll indulge me for 1 second.
Yeah.
Are we done already, or do we
No,
have
you're good.
Okay. So I'm in Buenos Aires and I hear about this amazing tango show, and I go to this tango show, which is in a room that's maybe, I don't know, maybe 50 people can sit in it. And these tango dancers are like unbelievable, incredible costumes, beautiful makeup. They smell good because they literally are right over you as they're dancing around this room, like incredible performance. So I'm sitting there and the tango performance is in front of me and I'm enjoying this, and they're coming dancing around me. And I kind of turn around and Keith Richards is 5 feet behind me sitting at a table. And I was like, oh, that's Keith Richards. So I completely turn away from the tango group and I'm looking at Keith Richards trying to see like, hi Keith, hi Keith. So anyway, I found out that the Rolling Stones were playing 3 shows in Buenos Aires when I was there on my project. And this is also kind of cute. So Keith Richards had to stay at this, I think it's called Farina Hotel, anyway, where this tango show is. He had to stay there because Mick Jagger was staying at the Four Seasons. And then, I mean, I'm terrible with all names, but whoever else was staying somewhere. So they all had to stay at separate hotels because they all wanted the presidential suite, right? They couldn't all stay in the same hotel and have like not presidential suite and then, you know, a lower room. So I thought that was hysterical. Anyway, so that was his hotel. So he was there with his wife, I think his mother or no, he can't have a mother. Could he have a mother? He might have a mother. He was there with like somebody else who was like really ancient, and then some bodyguards.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, it was great.
He has to have a mother. Is she alive? I don't know about that.
Right, yes.
He has to have a mother.
Like, could it have been her mother? Anyway, you can edit that out if that sounded too weird, but all right. It was fun.
It's awesome.
Yeah, we want everyone to know how fun you are because you didn't think you were. So
Right.
Yeah.
Accidentally fun, I guess.
Yeah.
No, that was awesome. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for you. I do hope that this
Thanks.
program goes everywhere and it gets to Buenos Aires and Germany and everywhere that you want it to go, every state in the United States. It's a powerful program. And I just love it. I love everything that you're up to. You are up to big stuff. You're a powerful woman creating amazing change. And I love where you're coming from with the transformation aspect of it also. So thank you for your work in the world.
Appreciate it. Thank you both so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be with you.